Good morning, everyone, and thank you for making it out today and another day in the paradise of Kansas in our wonderful weather. Let's ask the Lord to bless our time. Father, as we come together, we do thank you again for the privilege of gathering around the Lord Jesus today and remembering him. And now we open the Word, and we just pray that you will direct our hearts to what is being said, and that your Spirit will change us, will give us understanding, and that we will be able to direct our lives from what we understand that you have to say. So we thank you for all this effort that goes in today to bringing this about, and then we ask your blessings on the time. In the name of the Lord Jesus, amen. I would like you to turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 12. We're going to look at the first 8 verses today. This is installment number 20 in the book of Ecclesiastes. And the title of my message today is, If You Live Long Enough. There was a tip-off the last time that we looked at Ecclesiastes, and that said that Solomon gives a very, I'm not sure what the right word is. I'm going to use depressing, a depressing view of old age. When we read these first 8 verses, we have to remember that this is being written as from a person who is viewing life from the world's perspective without God, trying to come to grips with happiness, what's fulfilling, how do I enjoy myself during the time of my stay on earth. And we're getting to the end of the book, and we're also getting to the end of a man's life, it looks like. So we're going to look at this from the perspective as this is a man who's tried to find happiness and fulfillment in the world without God, and this is the attitude that you end up with. So let's look at these verses and just look at the attitude that's presented. Chapter 12, verse 1. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, when you will say, I have no delight in them. Before the sun, the light, the moon, and the stars are darkened, and clouds return after the rain. And in the day that's the watchmen of the house tremble, and mighty men stoop. The grinding ones stand idle because they are few. And those who look through the windows grow dim. And the doors on the street are shut as the sound of the grinding mill is low. And one will arise at the sound of the bird, and all the daughters of song will sing softly. Furthermore, men are afraid of a high place, and of terrors on the road. The almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags himself along, and the caperberry is ineffective. For man goes to his eternal home, while mourners go about in the street. Remember him before the silver cord is broken, and the golden bowl is crushed. The pitcher by the well is shattered, and the wheel at the cistern is crushed. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher, all is vanity. And that's just about as bright as the weather outside, wouldn't you think? Very encouraging words. And it really gives a depressing picture of old age. You know, Solomon is, I think, in one way, giving a warning to young people. So you guys on the front row here, and some of you not too far back, this is written to you just as much as it is to some of us older ones who are going to identify with some of the maladies that are talked about in this passage. But this is a young man's advice. Every one of you should do as he admonishes here, and that is to remember the Creator in the days of your youth. Because if you live long enough, days can be difficult and cruel as you grow older, and they can be totally lacking in pleasure and enjoyment. Now, when you're young, it's easy to get caught up in the strength of your body, and you can invest yourself in things that don't last. You're just full of passions and desires and energy. You have youth. You have all this strength. And there are plenty of things in the world that will take it from you and then use it. One of the things that is prevalent, and I've been involved in it, is sports. You're young and you have all this energy, and in many ways, sports is a great that we have in the city for kids because you have anything to do with your time. You have all this energy and tension and passion built up, and you need to invest it in something, and at least sports provides an outlet for that would direct it in kind of a positive way, because there are good things that you can learn from sports. But you can take it to the wrong extreme or to the wrong sense of values, and you see it now in high schools, for example. Basketball and football are year-round preparations. And you can spend thousands of dollars and go to camps and learn how to play football better and how to shoot free throws better and all these sort of things. And then when you participate, you have to give your body up for the team. And you can hear that expression. I was watching a football game last week and heard a guy say, "Oh man, he really gave his body up for the team." When that guy's 50 years old, he's going to realize what he gave up for the team. I can remember, and I've got certain injuries that I've experienced over the years, and every time these things flare up, I can remember exactly the moment they happened. My nose broke playing football, and I know exactly where it happened and who did it to me. Well, I remember breaking my hand in judo class. Can remember the day exactly where it was and what happened. Or a spot in Ottawa where I ran into a fence chasing a foul ball and messed up my knee. When the weather changes, I remember that fence. And with my back, injured my back, which I deal with probably of all the injuries, that's the one that is the worst, messing my back up, but never healed. Or you can be young and be starting out in a career, and you have a job, and they are really happy to have all these young bodies in there and guys that need money. I've got debts to pay off, I've got school and so on, and they will love to work you 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And you want it too because you want to buy things. You might even have a desire to get rich. And so you invest yourself in the job. And yet it tells us to be careful about wanting to get rich, because you can fall into temptation and a snare and many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. And you can pour yourself into school. If you want to go to college, they tell you, well, you got to start in high school. And so you invest yourself in preparing for college. And then when you go to college, and it's just a consuming time. And we haven't even talked about romantic relationships yet. Talk about something that takes your time. So all these things build up, and you can be a young person, and you can be going to school or having a job and be involved in romantic interests, and some older Christian comes up to you and you say, well, what are you doing for the Lord? You say, well, I've really been busy. You are busy, but what are you busy at? And when you're young, you think you have all the strength in the world. I was in awe a couple years ago when I had Phil Schoenberg's tree crew come over and take some trees out of my backyard. And there was Big John and Jason and Bammer. And it was like, we don't need machines. These guys could almost pluck those trees out of the ground with their arms. They were so strong. I couldn't believe what they did. The strength and the power these guys had. And when you're young like that and you have all that energy, it's easy to look down on somebody that's not very strong. And you can really look at Phil, those poor old guys, But you know what? If you live long enough, that's going to be you. If you live long enough, it's going to be just like what he talks about here in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And he's given this picture of what happens to the man as he grows older. And the aspiration of every young person should be, as this is expressed, I taught this out of Bill McDonald's commentary, and this is attributed to a man named Thomas Gill. And he says, Lord, in the fullness of my might, I would for thee be strong, while runneth o'er each dear delight, to thee should soar my song. I would not give the world my heart, and then profess thy love. I would not feel my strength depart, and then thy service prove. I would not with swift winged zeal on the world's errands go, and labor up the heavenly hill with weary feet and slow. And not for thee my weak desires, my poor baser part. O not for thee my fading fires, the ashes of my heart. O choose me in my golden time, in my dear joys have part. For thee the glory of my prime, the fullness of my heart. And the Lord uses young people. And he took a boy, Samuel, and made him into a mighty man of God. And a king called David, who was a man after God's own heart. As a boy, in the power of the Lord, slew a giant. And there are these young men in Daniel who would face the fiery furnace rather than bow down to an image of a man. And a young man, Timothy, who Paul took and made a pillar of the New Testament church. You do not want to grow old and look back on life that has been spent solely investing in yourself and realize you have nothing to show for the Lord. You do not want to wait until you are laying in a hospital bed and you're looking back on your life and you realize, I have nothing that I can present to God. And that is a scary thing, boys. When you're alone in a hospital bed and I can be with the Lord tonight. What am I going to show? It's a serious thought. And when you're laying in a hospital bed, it's too late to do anything about it. So verse 2 says, before the sun, the light, the moon, and the stars are darkened, and the clouds return after the rain. Old age is a time when the lights start to grow dim, both physically and emotionally. The days can be dreary and the nights can be long. There are many older ones here who suffer from not being able to sleep at night. And the nights are really long when you can't sleep. And it's easy for gloom and depression to settle in. And when we talk about rain, we always talk in the world about, well, rainy days come. You need to have money set aside for rainy days. And there are problems in life, and there are troubles, and there are discouragements. But when you're young, you think, well, the sun will come back out. It's going to emerge, and your spirits will bounce back, and things will be good again. But there are times when you get older and the sunny days are gone. And there's more clouds. Where's the rain? Where's the sun? All I see is clouds and doom. And so youth is the time to remember the Creator, because you have the optimism of youth. Not every day is a rainy day. And you have the ability to go on. But in verse 3 says, in the day that the watchmen of the house tremble and mighty men stoop, the grinding ones stand idle because they are few, and those who look through windows grow dim. This is a picture of the body of the old man under the figure of a house. And the keepers of the house are the arms and the hands. And they were once strong and active and able to chop down trees with one swipe and load them up in the big carts and haul them off. But they're now wrinkled and gnarled and trembling with Parkinson's. The strong men are the legs and the thighs, and they're no longer straight and athletic, but they look like parentheses of buckling under the weight of the body. And the grinders cease because they're few, and those grinders are what we use best to eat with. And when there aren't enough uppers to chew against the lowers, food is not near as much fun. It's a battle. Because they didn't have false teeth in Solomon's day. If you didn't have any teeth, you couldn't chew. And you look through those windows that grow dim, the eyes that are steadily failing. Now, nobody, I'm sure, here can identify with this, but first you need glasses. Then you need bifocals. As my optometrist told me when I had to have mine, he says, Ron, doesn't matter if you're 40, 41, 42, 45, you're going to need them, so you might as well get them. It's inevitable. If you grow old enough, it's going to happen. Then you need trifocals. Then you got to have cataract surgery. And then you go to the Bible bookstore and you buy, something's got print about this big, and you buy a magnifying glass about this big so you can read. Does this, anybody empathize with this? Yeah, it happens. And verse 4 says, and the doors on the street are shut as the sound of the grinding mill is low. And one will arise at the sound of the bird, and all the daughters of song will sing softly. The doors on the street are shut. And that refers to our ears. Everything has to be repeated over and over again. I tell my wife, I told you that. She says, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. And she turns around and tries to do that to me. Well, hearing is not what it used to be when you get older. Loud noises like the grinding of the mill become very low and indistinct. The old man suffers from insomnia. He rises up bright and early when the first birds begin to sing because he was already awake and he can't go back to sleep. My father was that way. He'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He was never content just to get up. But he had to get up and slam the cabinet doors and rattle pots and pans around and cook breakfast. And you ever try to sleep late when somebody's frying bacon and eggs and got coffee going? It's impossible. Just sleep later. And all the daughters of the music are brought low. The vocal cords become impaired. The voice cracks and is unsteady, and you wouldn't think about singing anymore. And verse 5 says, "Furthermore, men are afraid of a high place and of terrors on the road. The almond tree blossoms. The grasshopper drags himself along, and the capybara is ineffective. For man goes to his eternal home, while mourners go about in the street." Now, I've noticed, among some of us who are older, that we're not real fond of heights anymore. And it seems as though this is something that Solomon noticed. Afraid to go up to high places. Now, Tom Oberzan, you don't know, he may have left. No, there he is. We love those ladders, right, Tom? It's not bad when they slip. It's just the landing that gets you. Yeah. I don't enjoy glass elevators anymore either. It used to be thrilling to ride up in a glass elevator, and now you realize what's not below you, like structural members. And terrors are on the way. You lose self-confidence. You're afraid to go out alone at night. You don't like to go out in the dark. You don't like to drive at night. It gets harder. The blossoming almond tree is the picture of white hair. First in rich profusion and then falling to the ground. Some of us have fallen faster than others. We won the race, didn't we, David? And you got this picture of this grasshopper, this old broken down grasshopper, dragging himself along the ground. And here's this old man bent over, twisted, jerky-herky in his walk. And now all those times that you gave your body for the team come back and say, "Remember 45 years ago when you got your nose broke? Well, now we're going to fix it. Where's my team to help me now when I got to go get my nose operated on?" They're not around. Nobody around for my softball team to help me get out of bed when my back is killing me. There's nobody there to help you with the pain anymore. All those things that you invested your body in are not there. And desire fails in our natural appetites, and it diminish or cease altogether. Food no longer has flavor, and other basic drives just begin to diminish. Sexual vigor is gone. And this degenerative process takes place because man is going to his long-lasting home, death and the grave. And soon his funeral procession will be moving down the street. And so, Solomon says, remember him before the silver cord is broken and the golden bowl is crushed. The pitcher by the well is shattered and the wheel at the cistern is crushed. Here is this old wise man, wise in the ways of the world, and the author of Proverbs, who speaks something for his insight, says, you need to remember God, your Creator, before the silver cord is broken. This silver cord probably refers to the breaking of this tender thread of life that holds your spirit and your body. It's like an umbilical cord from your body to your soul and spirit. Fanny Crosby had this to say in one of her hymns. She said, someday the silver cord will break, and I no more as now shall sing, But oh, the joy when I shall wake within the palace of the King. One of the greatest sermons ever preached was by Jonathan Edwards, and it was about sinners in the hands of an angry God. And in that, he starts this sermon out, and he pictures a person being held over the fiery pits of hell, and they are dangling by a thin thread. And this thin thread is what every one of us has. We have this silver cord that holds our soul and our spirit with our body. And we are, as it were, we all were dangling over the fiery pits of hell. This little thin silver cord. Very fragile. And you have the heat that's coming up. Should be able to singe that, and you would be gone. And if you are a sinner in the hands of an angry God, there's nothing there to catch you. You are going to go into a fiery hell. That is the eternal destiny of every person who does not know Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior of their life. And this golden bowl is understood to talk about our brains, our cranial cavity. And the breaking of it is a picture of the secession of our mind at the time of death. And the pitcher and the wheel are like a circulatory system. And it would be like, for us, the apparatus that gives us sustaining life, the heart and the circulatory system. But when that breaks, it says, verse 7, then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Rigor mortis sets in, and the body begins to return to dust, and the spirit returns to God who gave it, or so it seemed to Solomon. In the case of the believer, that's true. But in the case of the unbeliever, the spirit goes to Hades and there to await the great white throne of judgment. And then the spirit will be reunited with the body, and the entire person will be cast into the lake of fire. And that's Revelation chapter 20, verse 12. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. Verse 8, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. We go full circle in this book. Starts out vanity of vanities, ends vanity of vanities. The basic tenet is that life without God under the sun is vanity, meaningless, futile, and empty. And this is the last reference he makes to this in Ecclesiastes. And so when we look, the last verses, the next time we go into this book, we will see some conclusions that he brings about. But when we think about this chapter, first of all, for the believer, yeah, you might be old, you might be suffering from these things, but the believer knows that even though he dies, he's going to have a new body, and he's going to be with Christ. And all these things in this world are just temporary and are passing away. Experiences that teach us to know and love our God more and more. But if you're not a believer this morning, do you realize that you are dangling by a thread? And that if that thread breaks, the only thing that awaits you is a fiery hell for eternity? You cannot afford to leave this building today unless you have an understanding of what it means to know Christ and to escape a sure punishment. Your life is hanging by a thread. And we cannot escape the verse of Hebrews 9:27 that we talked about the last time, that hangs like a guillotine over every person. It is appointed to men to die once, and after this comes judgment. And that judgment is to appear before the great white throne and to be cast into the lake of fire. Those are not my words. Those are the words of God. And it was because of that reason that he sent his only Son to this world to die so that you might be able to escape. How should we escape if we neglect so great a salvation? We can't escape. That's the whole point. And you do not want to be, young people, an old man or an old woman lying in a hospital bed thinking, I have nothing to show to the Lord. It's too late. Well, then, do something now while you're young and able to do it. We're going to have a baptism now, so I'd like to have those that are going to take part in that